thank you for spending some time with me today. I am Chrysalis, and this is Women on Wrestling Editorials. If this is the first time that you're joining me, welcome. I appreciate you being here. You are contributing to me hopefully being able to make this more of a full-time thing in the future going forward. I am still learning how to do audio, video, and all things YouTube related, so these are kind of rudimentary for now, but I mainly just want to get my points across, and I think that with my experience, as well as my particular perspective on things, I have something to offer to the wrestling community at large. So again, welcome if this is the first time joining us. If this is your second or third or even fourth time back, thank you so very much. You don't understand exactly how much I appreciate it, and please try to pass the word so again, I can help build this and make this more of a community for all of us. This week, I'm going to be reviewing my pops and blown spots for the week of 4/20/20 through 4/24/20 with both Raw and Smackdown. I don't have an awful lot to talk about this week in either direction, so this video probably isn't going to be as long as some of my other videos are, but hopefully I can add a little bit more to the narrative as well as to the overall conversations that are being had within the community. I'm going to start off with my pops from Monday night's edition of Raw, which was on 4/20/20. I'm probably going to try to say that as much as possible just because it sounds funny to me, but I don't know if it's because since they don't have an audience, things aren't running as smoothly as they originally did when they started doing all of their shows and tapings out of the Performance Center. I don't know if it's just simply that with the recent layoffs, the creative crew has been scaled down some, and therefore you have people probably filling in spots where they weren't necessarily participating before. But this week especially just felt like kind of a lag, almost like a filler week. So there wasn't a lot to go over in either direction. One of the pops that I really enjoyed on Monday night was, again, more Zelina. I know I have mentioned this in the past that I'm really enjoying the fact that we're getting to see her a lot more. I think she has stepped up considerably with things having moved to the Performance Center because they're giving her more opportunity. They've obviously grown her stable a little bit more by adding in Austin Theory, but by having her on every week, and especially by having her on commentary, it's adding another layer of things specifically for her and her character development that I think is heading in the right direction. I especially love the banter she had back and forth with Drew. The two of them played off each other really, really well, and you can tell that they're probably getting along backstage. Obviously, Aleister Black is her real-life husband, so it was kind of interesting this week seeing her provide commentary for Austin Theory, who faced Aleister this week, without supporting her husband and playing a character, and I just love how all that works. Regardless, she's doing an exceptionally good job, and I can't argue with that, and I want to see more of it. She's definitely kind of shown up to me as one of the MVPs for this whole situation, how she's handled things, how she's handled the responsibilities that have been given to her for character development-wise, not only just for herself, but also for promoting Andrade and Austin Theory and Angel Garza, and just her interactions with everybody are very true to form. They feel very organic, and they feel like she's heading in a great direction, and I want to continue to see more of it. There were a couple of pops for me on Smackdown this week. Obviously, it was the 25th anniversary of Triple H and being able to celebrate what he has done, not just as a performer, but also behind the scenes as the EVP for talent and development. I think I have that correct. Regardless, it was good to see that. That was certainly a pop for me, and I'll get to that in just a second. The other pop for me on Smackdown this week, honestly, was the Forgotten Sons. They were introduced a couple of weeks ago, and I know I've said it in the past, I didn't like how Lacey Evans' use of the military, or the use of Lacey Evans' military background was handled when she was a heel. I don't think they handled it well. I don't like how they handled it because, in my opinion, most of the time if you're in the military, I want to see you be a face. I want to see you be put over. I want to see you be something that the audience can get behind and rally behind. Now that Lacey is a face, it's working considerably better, and that was certainly true to form this week when she faced off against Sasha for the Money in the Bank qualifications, and I'm glad to see her getting a push in that direction. The Forgotten Sons are an interesting aspect to me because obviously they're bringing that in a little bit more with their military backgrounds and having been former Marines. One of the things that I love completely was them calling out on the Miz on the fact that he's only played a Marine where they are actually Marines. So that was certainly something that I enjoyed. You can't tell if they're going to be face or heel. definitely feels like they're heading in the heel direction, which is something I want to see how they're going to play that out, because obviously they've brought that military base forward. And again, I don't like when that's used in a heel capacity, generally speaking. Most of the time it's not handled well, it's not done well, and it takes a considerable amount of, I won't even say talent, I think it takes a considerable amount of, I'm not even sure what the word is. Regardless, it's not something that I generally like to see. So to see them come in, being introduced a couple of weeks ago, have that be brought up, have them bring it up this week with this week's promo before the free-for-all that happened, it was certainly an interesting experience, and I'm kind of curious to see how it plays out. Regardless, I like the three of them so far, and I think it would be really, really cool to see the three of them go against New Day once Xavier is cleared to come back from his Achilles tendon, or his Achilles tendon surgery that he had almost a year ago now. I think it's roughly a year ago, but I could be wrong. I kind of liked that with them. The matches this week in both directions were just kind of, I mean, you had some good matches. You had Corbin against Drew Gulak, and that was a good match. But they weren't necessarily anything to write home about. They were solid matches. They were fine. There isn't anything good or bad to really say in either direction for it. So I can't really comment on the matches themselves. You had Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross defend their titles against Carmella and Dana Brooke. And though I like the fact that Carmella is getting another push and Dana Brooke feels like she's getting more of a push, it almost feels this week like Dana was trying a little too hard. And I think if she could reel that back just a little bit and not be quite so overzealous, it would sell better. Either that, or she actually has to go even further in the overzealous, overexcited, almost Nikki Cross level of just not being able to contain her energy. The problem with that, though, obviously, is if she goes too far in that direction, she starts coming off as a weird sort of Nikki Cross, poser almost. So you don't want that to happen either. There's no other word for it, really. So matches wise, in both Raw and Smackdown this week, there were some good solid matches. They just weren't good enough for me to go, hey, this was an awesome match. There also weren't really any matches that made me go, this match sucked, except for one, and I'll get to that in just a bit. The other pop for me from Smackdown was indeed the 25th anniversary and celebration of Triple H's career with the company. Obviously, we are certainly in unprecedented times. We've all said that regularly and frequently as of late. So they weren't able to give Triple H necessarily the celebration that he truly deserves. I know a lot of people don't necessarily feel like Triple H should be getting a lot of kudos or celebration because, well, he married into the family, and a lot of people see that as him being able to marry into a position where he has more control. And, that may or may not have been true. Who knows what their relationship really looks like. From what I've been able to see, Stephanie and him get along really well. They love each other very much. They love their girls. They do a really good job, it seems, of being able to balance personal life and professional life, which is not an easy thing to do at all, especially in the entertainment business. It happens considerably a lot, but it's not always the easiest thing to necessarily navigate. And they seem to be doing a pretty good job of it. So I honestly, it was just really good to see some of the things we got to see. Highlights from Evolution, highlights from DX, the whole banter with him and Shawn in the ring was awesome. And it really goes to show when you have the experience, when you have the talent and experience that both those men have, it shows in the ring. There was no audience. It was just the two of them and the crew, and it worked. It was funny. It was entertaining. It made me laugh out loud on a couple of occasions. Even the spot with Vince, where Vince came out, though it was odd, with how much Triple H was laughing, you could tell that that's just kind of the way the relationship is. It's, that father-in-law that really does love his son-in-law, but he's going to rib him every single chance he can get. So you just kind of put him in his place and remind him where he is and who he is, which sort of fits with Vince when you think about it. But regardless, I thought it was a really well done celebration given the circumstances that we're under, and happy anniversary to Triple H. Now that's going to get me to my blown spots for this week. So I have two blown spots for this week, one on Smackdown and one on Raw. I'm sure you guys can probably already guess what the one on Raw is because it's been a major controversy all week long. But the one on Smackdown was that horrible Lacey Evans CGI that they used during her introduction into the match with Sasha. That rivaled Roman Reigns, if not overtook the Roman Reigns CGI that they used on a pay-per-view a couple of months ago. I don't remember which one it was, but it was absolutely horrendous CGI, and whoever came up with the idea and or tried to execute the idea, I give you credit for trying, dude, but really, it wasn't flattering. It was kind of scary. And can we stop with those? Because no, just no. The other blown spot, I think we all are well aware of the fact that Nia Jax and Kairi Sane had a rematch this week, and there were a few instances during that match where the bumps that Kairi took were borderlining on dangerous, if not actually dangerous. The primary one, of course, was the buckle bump that she took, where she landed more on the bottom buckle and practically got whiplash off the second one, which I'll get to in a second. Now, I had said in last week's video that I really liked the match between Nia and Kairi the week before. They did a great job kind of in a micro story of having this David and Goliath type match go on between Nia and Kairi. Nia's going to come in, she's going to, Nia smash, and that's the way it's going to be. Kairi's going to come in and she's going to try to use her speed and technicality to overcome Nia. And of course, last week, she lost. This week, again, she lost. But there was a distinct difference in the way those bumps were handled last week to this week. Last week, those bumps were well done, in my opinion, from what I saw. They were sold really well. They were handled really well. There wasn't anything in the match last week that I saw to be dangerous. The buckle bump. I'm just going to call it a buckle bump. I know there's a technical term for it, but it's escaping me right now. The buckle bump that she took this week, though, was, I cringed. I cringed, and then I got really, really worried for a minute that the ref was going to call the match right there because it was not handled well. Kairi still had her legs wrapped around Nia when she got thrown. That's certainly going to affect things. And basically, when it comes down to it, and I said this on Twitter with quite a few people, is that when you are taking a bump, usually the person who is taking the bump is the person in control of the bump. 9 times out of 10, that's the situation and the way it's going to be. So if you are taking a bump and you get hurt, most of the time it's your own fault because you didn't do something correct. That being said, there are certain moves and certain instances in which the person taking the bump is not the one controlling the bump, and they are completely reliant on the person that is doing whatever they are doing to them to help ensure that that bump is completed safely. I have been in that particular move where you're held up above somebody's head. And to get thrown down like that, you are completely reliant on whoever is throwing you to throw you in a direction and at a speed that you can control your landing. That way, though you are not controlling the bump, you're controlling how you are going to come out of it at the end. Kairi was not given that opportunity this week, and because of that, you saw her hit the buckles the way she did, hit that corner really hard, but then in addition to that, her head went back. And that's where the concern comes into play, because with something like that, you run the risk of whiplash, you run the risk of concussion, you run the risk of spine damage and stenosis and a whole bunch of other things. There have been plenty of wrestlers that have been hurt from that exact move going wrong. And that's because what ends up happening, especially when you are in a situation where the person doing the throwing is substantially larger than the person taking the bump, you run the risk of that adrenaline kicking in and that person throwing with a bit more force than they had intended. That's what I think happened in this case, and that's what makes that move unsafe if it is not handled properly. Now, obviously, on the Twitterverse this week, there are a lot of people up in arms and complaining about how unprofessional and how unsafe Nia is. I'm not going to make that call. I've not seen enough of her matches. I know some of the history. I know about, the punch she gave to Becky Lynch that gave her a concussion and caused her to not be able to have her match against Ronda Rousey. I've heard of things that have happened in the past, matches with Charlotte and such. I've not seen them. So I don't have enough personal experience watching her matches to make a determination as to whether I think she is safe or unsafe in the ring. Accidents do happen. That is a thing, as I said before, when I was learning how to do all this myself, the main thing that was drilled into our heads is that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when and how bad. So I can understand circumstances where accidents happen and you get hurt. I've had that happen to me myself. I've seen it happen to plenty of other people in varying degrees of injury. But that was certainly a blown spot, both figuratively and literally. So that pretty much ends my pops and blown spots for this week. Again, if you have liked my content, if you have liked my opinion, please hit the subscribe button and subscribe bell, and make sure that you give me a like so that it can help get my videos a little bit more out there and I can try to reach more people. Again, my goal is to try to build this up. I want to be able to provide you guys with more of my opinion. And if you have any questions, concerns, or anything that you would like to know, please feel free to drop a comment below. I'd like to be able to start some sort of dialogue between whoever is watching my videos and myself, so we can grow this a little bit more. So until next week, guys, enjoy, and I'll see you then.